Now, when the angels got here, they taught many, many things. I'm going to kind of condense this because we've talked about it in times past. But if you go to the book of Enoch, not first Enoch, not second Enoch, not third Enoch, simply the book of Enoch, just a simple book that was written, which is very hard to find now. Chapter 8, you'll find out that there are several things that they began to teach mankind. In the book of Enoch, they had things there that was written like it was corrupt, like they would teach them astrology and so forth. But before there could be a corruption of astrology, they would have to be able to teach things like astronomy. I believe what we have here, they taught the making of certain weapons that would be good for hunting. And I know a lot of people say that there was no hunting in those days, and biblically it seems to imply that they were just doing nothing but vegetarians. But there could have been certain tribes among Cain that would have been fighting, eating meat and stuff. We don't know that for sure. We don't know for or against it. So take that with a grain of salt. They also would have brought out about a certain they could have taught many different things. Now, let me read to you this because I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself. The angels became basically benefactors to mankind. And I want to read this definition to you. It would have brought about a Renaissance age when the angels came. Now, keep in mind, this was less than 500 years but after the fall of Adam. A Renaissance period would have quickly established itself. Now, what is the Renaissance? It's a period in history in which there's a drastic and sudden change in the way different aspects of society are approached, including art, literature, architecture, politics, and science. Now, look at these things that the fallen angels, or excuse me, that the angels would have been taught. There would have been certain weapons. If you go to Genesis chapter 4, verse 22, you'll see that Tubal-Cain was an artificer of every form of brass and iron. That would have given us proper tools. We could have been made much more nicer structures of buildings that we would have. Entertainment. Genesis chapter 4, verse 22 talks about how Jubal, he was an inventor of harps and so forth, how that happened, and stringed instruments. And this would have brought music from the children of Jubal that would soon lead to the rise of a form of performing arts, plays, and so forth. As far as science goes, they taught them certain things according to Enoch 8, medicines, if you will. That would have changed how we did medicine. The book of Enoch also tells us that they had the use of mirrors, if you will, which could have helped out with lasers, I believe. And by the way, it also talks about how the angels taught man the use of precious and rare stones, which would have been crystals, and that definitely would have led to a laser and even a digital technology that, to be honest with you, had been unmatched even since the time of that we're in now. Take it almost 5,000 years to get back to that. They would have taught things about what you and I would call natural history. In particular, they taught things about the sun, the moon, and the stars. This would have been going on, and this whole thing. So just look at this for a minute. Can you imagine angels? God would have sent these angels according to the Jewish traditions in the Book of Jubilees. God sent these angels to be a benefactor to mankind. Well, Michael, is that even in the Bible? Well, I'll tell you what. This is not on my notes. It's not my scripture. This is something the Lord just dropped in my heart. So let's take a look here. I'm going to turn here in the Bible to Psalm verse 104. Let's see where Psalm 104 is, and let's see what this says. Psalm 104 verse 4 says this: "Who maketh," meaning God made, what? His angels spirits, his ministers of flames of fire. Now, you can learn more about our topic I did a few weeks ago on angels, but this clearly tells us that angels are to be ministering spirits, and we know from the Word of God, without getting into a lot of detail, that anytime that Israel was in trouble, anytime God's people was in trouble, He would send angels. He sent angels to protect and minister to Jesus Christ during His ministry. We know that in the books of Acts, angels came to Peter's aid. We know that Paul says we entertain angels unaware. So angels are here for us, or for our benefit, and this is exactly what we find. Exactly what we find in the record of the Jewish traditions, and even the Scripture seems to imply this very strongly. Now, where do we go from here? I mean, think about this. They taught us medicine. We were taught medicine from the angels. See, I'm almost about ready to get excited here. I'm going to be honest with you. If you think about this, what we have is the angels came here to teach us these great, wonderful disciplines. I'll recap those here in a second. But if you're a fan of Ancient Aliens, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's really secular, and I really believe that the world is beginning to get set up for some of these men on these ancient aliens programs to be the gurus of a new coming world order, to be quite honest with you. That's what I think. But I own every episode of Ancient Aliens. I find some of the information is very intriguing, and they have some very good points to make. But they believe that aliens came in antiquity and years past. They think that aliens came here to teach mankind. Well, if you do a little bit of digging with the angels, that's exactly what the angels did. The angels came here on assignment from God to teach, to educate, and to make mankind better. So we'd gotten away from God's ways. So after about almost a century of revival under Canaan, then what we have is God sending these angels, and they taught us medicine. They taught us they gave us understanding for better weapons that would been easier for that would have been easier to make sacrifices and so forth. And we know that sacrifices were being made because God made a sacrifice for Adam and Eve, so for their sins. So there was sacrifices going on. We know they had weapons of sort, primitive weapons, if you will, compared to weapons of war. I mean, we had entertainment that had increased. We had medicine. We had various forms of other science and disciplines and so forth. And the rest of things I want to share with you for our education. Get this. Enoch, when he came to power, and there's so much written about Enoch in the first book of the book of Enoch that was written. It's unreal. But what I want to share with you, I want to read something here to you for a minute. I want to talk to you about some of the things that Enoch actually was able to accomplish and what he did. Put my glasses back on here, if you will. I'm going to start reading in Jubilees chapter 4. Jubilees chapter 4. And look at what we're going to do here. I'm going to start reading in verse 17. Now, this is talking about Enoch. He, meaning Enoch, of course, was the first among men that are born on earth who learned writing and knowledge and wisdom, who wrote down the signs of the heavens according to the order of their months in a book, that men might know the seasons of the years according to their order in their separate months. So here we have, he learned writing. He had special knowledge and wisdom. And by the way, that writing wouldn't just be just simply to write stuff. He would have been the first one to understand reading and writing and share and teach with mankind. He also was involved with knowing the seasons and the times and knowing the order of the heavenly bodies. This basically deals with calendars that he invented. This deals with how he understood astronomy, not astrology. So this is evidence that angels were sitting here to help mankind. Verse 18, he was the first to write a testimony, and he testified to the sons of men among generations of the earth, and recounted the weeks of jubilees, and made known to them the days of years, and set in order the months, and recounted the Sabbaths of years, as we know them, as known unto him. So see, this gets it more into the aspect, if you will, of let me close out this window real quick so I can see my page a little bit better. This actually tells us that that Enoch was basically the inventor of reading, writing, arithmetic. He would have understood aspects he understood the calendar, the holy days of God, which is mentioned in Leviticus 23. He would understand all this, and he would have understood astronomy. He would understand the things of the universe, which is very kin to physics and chemistry and so forth. He would have been the first science. And it's pretty interesting that when you stop to take note of this, that the Egyptians have a god named Thoth, Thoth, and he was the god of medicine. He was the god of knowledge and wisdom. And by the way, Thoth is an Egyptian name for none other than Enoch. If you study that, you'll find out that they had the same name. So Enoch, according to the Egyptians, Thoth was this Gentile man, because he was before the Hebrew nation came into existence. He was the god of knowledge and wisdom and so forth. So very, very good stuff that we have here that shows how advanced the technology of the world was. It was very that they would have had a digital technology like we do today that would have been able to help them with telecommunications. And I know this is not really a popular thing where we sit there and we want to hear about this, because we want them to be basically right out of the garden and living in caves. But that's not what the Bible or history teaches. They could very well could have had a digital technology like you and I do. Now, I'm not saying that they sat there and had Cable One to sit there and tell them what movies they could watch on Prime and the pay-per-view movies. I honestly don't know how advanced it got, but I can't dispel that. They had digital technology. They had the ability to know how to dig for minerals, iron ore and stuff, and precious stones, where they could build better weapons. They could. The Book of Enoch even tells them that the angels taught them how to wear makeup and certain ornaments that the women wear on the body, maybe earrings and stuff. All this was something the angels built with mankind. They were teachers of mankind according to the scriptures that would later become false teachers. There was they taught them all kinds of stuff. Through Enoch, he learned about various sciences, disciplines of science, mathematics. He would have known about the calendar. He could have recounted the holy days. But, by the way, how do I know the holy days were associated with the calendar? Because Psalm 19, verse 1 talks about how the heavens declare His glory. Okay, the heavens declare the glory of God, or the word glory means the person or the persona of it, and that was simply Jesus Christ. So the heavenly bodies actually proclaim Christ. So he would have known about this. He would have been able to document this stuff. So there was so much going on in the last days that were leading up to today's Noah. By the way, Noah's not born yet. But look at this technology. Look at this renaissance of time, if you will, where everything was beginning to change and develop. And it was all because mankind had the ability to walk with basically a higher intelligence, and those higher intelligences were none other than angels. But unfortunately, angels were able to substantiate into flesh and blood, or to a physical body. And when that happens, according to 1 John 2:16, then we have some serious liabilities that we have to deal with, and that is the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the pride of life. And I believe that eventually this is what happened to cause the fallen angels, cause the elect angels to become fallen angels. Now let's talk for a minute. Let's talk a little bit and take the next step. We are about 39 minutes into tonight's broadcast, and I want to show you something. Okay? Dark times quickly arose in the seventh generation. In the seventh generation after Adam, which according to the book of Jude, that would have been Enoch. The angels would have fallen right around at the time that Methuselah was born, when Enoch was about 65 years old. And this would have put it, you ready for this? 687 years after the creation of Adam. So look at, this is less than 700 years after God created Adam, and look at all the things that we've shared at in these past 40 minutes. Look at all the things that we have looked at, and see how straight across the board, straight across the board, all the stuff that's happened, the fall of mankind, the redemption set in motion for mankind. We have seen famines come to the globe through judgment of idolatry. We have seen revivals break loose under Canaan that lasted for nearly a century. We've had angels descend from heaven by direction of God to come down here to teach mankind the ways of God, to begin to instruct them. Canaan was he did that for a century before the fallen angels even got here. There's so much going on here that we have. We see that that reading and writing was established. We see that astronomy was established, medicine was established, and so forth. And this is one thing I want to share with you before we get to the dark ages, before we get to the dark times to come here. This is something that I really want to point out to you. I'm going to read Jubilees chapter 4, verse 19. And there's a very interesting verse here. Look at what Jubilees verse 19 says about Enoch. And what was and what will be, he, meaning Enoch, saw in a vision of his sleep, as it will happen to the children of men throughout the generations until the day of a judgment. So Enoch was a prophet. He saw everything that was going on from where he lived to the end of the days, roughly around to the time that Christ returns. And he, meaning Enoch, saw and understood everything, and he wrote his testimony and placed it. Get that? He placed this testimony on earth for all the children of men and for their generations. So he actually took time to place a testimony on the earth for all of mankind to read. And ooh, boy, I tell you, look at what we're going to go back to the book, the Antiquities of the Jews, real quick, and look at what we have here. Antiquities of the Jews, book 1, chapter 2. Chapter 2. Where is it? Okay, I want to make sure I don't get too far out. Let's see. Book 1, chapter 2. Chapter 2, section 3, verse 69. And look what it says. Section 3, verse 69. Look what we have here. Okay. Now, all these proved to be of good disposition, meaning the descendants of Seth. They were good disposition. They also inhabited the same country, and this is many people believe this was the Garden of Eden. Now, when I say they were in the Garden of Eden, people say, didn't God expel them out from the Garden of Eden? Not really. The Eden was the land, okay? The garden was east in Eden, and that was exactly where the tree of life was, and I fully believe from studying this, God didn't want to keep them out of the garden as much as he wanted to keep them away from the tree of life after they fell. So that's a theory. You don't have to buy into it. It's just something I find very interesting, that they were probably in the area of the Garden of Eden, but not necessarily where the tree of life was, because I believe God took that tree of life to heaven to where one day we can eat from that freely. So that they were in the same area, okay, same country without dissensions, and in happy condition without any misfortune falling upon them till they died. They also, get this, the children of Seth now, Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, then we got Enoch, okay, all these guys in the direct lineage. They also were the inventors of the peculiar sort of wisdom which is concerned with the heavenly bodies and their order. We just read that's what Enoch was doing. So this is speaking of Enoch, okay? Verse 70 of this Antiquities of the Jews says this, and that their inventions, meaning their understanding of the jubilees and the feasts, that those things and other things that they knew, so that their inventions might not be lost before they were sufficiently known, and upon Adam's prediction that the world will be destroyed at one time by a force of fire, that comes out of 2 Peter, and at another time by a violence and quantity of water, that's Genesis 6, 7, and 8, okay? They made two pillars, though, one of brick and the other of stone. They inscribed their discoveries on both of them, verse 71, that in case the pillar or brick should be destroyed by the flood, the pillar of stone might remain and exhibit those discoveries to mankind, and also inform them that there was another pillar of brick erected by them. Now, get this. Now, this remains in the land of Syria today. Now, let me ask you something. Syria, no matter what research you do, they're going to bring you to some very old beliefs that this was in the ancient land of Egypt. Now, there's some studies that will tell you that it was probably in the area of Syria, the modern-day Syria. But Syria, I don't believe at this time was known to Enoch, but that's kind of really stretching a little bit. But many sources will tell you this was most likely Egypt. Now, I got a question for you. Just something for you to think about. Do we know any stone structure that can stand the test of time, that can stand fire, and it can even survive a flood that's in Egypt? A testimony, a monument made of stone. And of course we do. It's called the Great Pyramid of Giza. So again, don't want to be dogmatic about this, but Enoch could have very well been under the expert tutelage, if you will, of angels. Enoch could have very well built the Great Pyramid of Giza. And you know, according to the Egyptians, they don't know where the pyramids came from. It was there when the Egyptians got here after the flood. So this tells you there's a pre-flood structure, and the actual biological Egyptians had nothing to do with it. So this is a very old structure. It comes from before the flood. Someone built it, and the book of Jubilees tells us that Enoch built a structure. He put it in the earth. It's in the land of Egypt. And the Antiquities of the Jews tells us that it was associated with understanding the Jubilees timeline and the holy calendar of God. And I believe this is exactly what we have tuning in here. And I see Jennifer's joining us. Hello, Jennifer. It's good to have you with us tonight. We got a good little tune in today. It's so good to have everybody tonight. This is exactly what we see happening.